Welcome everyone in Nigeria and the rest of the world. This is State of the Nation. I am Gimba Umar. Right behind me, data feeds are still coming through on all our social media platforms in one place. Simultaneously be part of the show. Tweet at Gimba Umar CTV and use the hashtag State of the Nation to air your thoughts. The budget 2018 is still topical and I can imagine will still be for some time from now. The concerns though lies in funding the 2018 budget, which was highlighted by the president himself, wherein he said that recovered funds of over 500 billion naira is one funding channel considered for the budget of consolidation. Other than the proceeds of oil and gas, another is his resolve to block the loopholes and encourage the whistleblowing policy. Now, Mr. Folare Ogunsowo is the former chairman, Lagos Inland Revenue Service. He joins me on State of the Nation. I want to thank you so much indeed for coming on the show at this time. What we have, about 8.6 trillion naira budget, is the largest in the history of this country, by the way. And whatever strength that will gather and looking at the funding challenge at the moment, can we effectively rely on taxes, for instance, to fund the budget?
Yeah. When you look at a typical budget, there is the revenue side and there's the expenditure side. And for the revenue side, it is taxes that is expected to fund the budget. Looking typically at this current budget of 8.6 trillion naira, it is a 16% increase from the 7.4 trillion naira for the current year 2017. And if you look at it typically, the revenue from oil is expected to be 2.4 trillion, while the non-oil revenue is expected to be in the region of 4.9 or thereabout trillion. So, and the balance of it, which is about 2 trillion, is expected to be a deficit and is expected to be run through the 1.7 trillion is expected to be in form of loan, both externally and internally. And then the balance of 306 is expected to be run through the statutory transfers or the sale of some assets belonging to the non-oil sector through the Bureau for Public Enterprises. So if you look at it typically, you will discover that it is still revenue in form of taxes that is expected to drive more than 80% of the budget. So my own belief as a tax practitioner and as a tax person is that tax can effectively run the budget.
But looking at our past budgets, for instance now, have we ever had that situation where taxes is considered as a major option?
Yes. The past budgets also has been, taxes has always been the basis for funding previous budgets year in, year out. The only problem is when Nigeria ran into this recession, there was a kind of drop in the expected and targeted revenue, the budgeted revenue. And as such, we had to look into other ways of financing the budget by borrowing to balance it up and all these things. But now that we are effectively out of the recession, my own belief is that the budget can actually be run through taxes.
In that budget that you just made reference to, the previous budget, what was the performance of taxes, the tax element in it?
Well, so far so good. As at the end of Q3, it has been about 70% performance so far.
For the tax element?
Yes, and I think that is fair enough. The only problem that came with that is that the non-oil revenue, there was a drop in it, particularly what is expected from the government entities that are supposed to also remit their surplus. But however, so far so good. Before the end of the year, I want to believe that there will still be more effective remittances to the coffers of government to be able to make up for the shortfall.
We did have a situation, if you remember, on the lead up to just a build up to the presentation of the 2018 budget, where the finance minister herself came out to say that taxes will be the option, the way to go in funding the 2017 budget. At some point, about a week later, it came out to say, no, it's not going to be taxes anymore. It will be borrowing that will fund the budget. Do you see that coming into play in the 2018 budget?
I think what the Honorable Minister for Finance, she was being pragmatic, being realistic with herself, because at a point, they realized that we came out of recession after Q2 with a growth of 0.55%. So at that point, you can't, when the economy is in recession and people are complaining that there's no money, businesses are folding up and so on and so forth, you can't expect much revenue to be generated at that point, because most businesses are not doing very well. So I think she had to change the option of saying, oh, we can't run this budget with taxes anymore. We have to look outwards. I think that was why they had to take a loan of about $5.5 billion to add to, to make up for the shortfall that would have come in terms of revenue. But now that we're effectively out of recession, gradually, and we are pulled out of it, and things are looking better, and the indices are looking very well. I mean, the oil price is increasing. As of now, I think the oil price is about $64 to a barrel. The inflationary rate is going down. The exchange rate is a bit stable. With all those indices that we are seeing, it's almost obvious that, and even the World Bank has projected that in the coming year, developing economies and emerging markets, where there will be a growth rate of about 3.9% or 4.something%, and that for developing economies it will be about 2%. So for a country like Nigeria we have projected a GDP increase of about from 3% now to 3.5%. So if you look at those indices, it is right to say that taxes can actually fund this budget and then take it out of, make Nigeria more prosperous, and then things can go smoothly, better than before.
Let's look at the expectations in this 2018 budget. They're pegging the number of barrels per day at 2.5 million barrels per day. Also looking at an inflation rate of 12.5%, and looking at an exchange rate of 305 to the dollar, and looking at the challenges in the Niger Delta also. Would you say that perhaps taxes alone cannot do this in a situation where you have got some upheavals in the Niger Delta?
Yes, if you listen to the budget very well, Mr. President mentioned that there is a provision of about 65 billion naira for the presidential amnesty program, which I think will go a long way to assist in improving security. This pipelines vandalization and so on and so forth. They will become a thing of the past, and then the militants will be less restive like they used to. And that will make the 2.3 million barrels per day, if not even more,
to be realistic.
Yes. I believe it will be.